You know, my passion is helping people. You know, I've always said I always like to do what I can to help others be successful. Someone who's passionate, someone who cares, somebody who's there to help. On one end of the spectrum, Abraham Lincoln, he inspired a lot of people, and Phil Jackson, you know, from a sports world. Welcome to another episode of Inspirational Leaders. I'm your host, Kevin Pickett, partner with Sales Integrity. We provide sales coaching and sales recruiting services. Today, I'm excited to have my guest with me, Bill Winsininski. Say that 3 times each. It takes me a while to do that. Director of Sales with ByteGrid. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Before we jump into kind of what inspirational leaders are and focus on the leadership aspect, tell us about ByteGrid. Who's your target market? Kind of what your role is there.
Sure. ByteGrid is a real estate investment company that specializes in mission-critical data center facilities. So our target market is large enterprise accounts, on down to small content providers. You know, there's nothing new in business that doesn't involve technology, and we support the platform that keeps that constantly available.
Great. So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, Inspirational Leaders is a show that focuses on leadership really in that sales bucket more than anything else. So today we're going to be sharing stories about sales leadership, some tips that have made you successful throughout your career. And at the end of this, I'm hoping you find a couple things that are useful for you and you can apply in your everyday. So before we jump into kind of the core part of leadership, you do a lot in the community. You give back. It's really how we met years ago. And talk about the leadership opportunities you've had there and how they affect your business.
Yeah, so when I moved here from San Francisco, I wanted to meet my neighbors and getting into the community and understanding who's out there and how they are and just jumping right in. I joined the local Chamber of Commerce. And when I started going to events, I felt like the new kid at school. I didn't know what to do with my arms. I was constantly, didn't know anybody, and then just stayed in it and worked my way up and became the chairman of the board for the Aurora Chamber. And then through that, with economic development and some of the Illinois Food Bank and different things, just volunteering. And before long, my network was huge. And I think how it's helped me is that I have a network of warm contacts and friendly contacts that I can pull upon when I'm doing an event or need some advice or whatever.
No, it's great. It's something I'm sure you would recommend to a lot of people to get involved and really to take a leadership role, because getting involved is one thing, but you actually roll your sleeves up and lead, which is another thing.
Yeah. I think it adds a lot of balance. I think if we're renting our heads out for 12, 13 hours a day, it's important to be able to do things that have a soul and matter.
Sure.
In a lot of ways, and I think it adds a lot of balance to your workflow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Bill, how do you define leadership?
I think leadership is just accountability. I think leading by example and other cliches. But when it comes down to it, I think it comes down to understanding your goals and objectives and inspiring the way that you would like to be inspired.
Okay, you talk about inspiring, inspirational leaders. How would you define that inspiration part? What separates an inspirational leader out from just an everyday leader?
I think an inspirational leader is someone who's genuinely excited about your success.
Sure. And
that they leave all the ego and preconceived stuff at the door and work to collaborate. And there's nothing more rewarding than collaborating and doing something and achieving a goal that you set forth and work together doing it. And then along the way, you see how this person has evolved into a leader themselves.
Sure. So who are some inspiring leaders that you follow?
Yeah, so one of my mentors was a guy by the name of John Seifert. So I started my sales career in Silicon Valley in the early 90s in technology publishing when it was just insane. And at that time, it was like priority. Everyone was talking about priorities like multitasking, 24/7, always connected. Sure. And John was very instrumental in helping us understand that in order for us to fully contribute, that we need to focus on one thing and do it well and be an expert on one thing. And he taught us that it's okay to take time out to ponder, to think, to really understand, instead of by doing thousands of things okay.
Sure.
Try to do a few things really well and truly contribute. And I try to carry that with me wherever I go.
That's good.
Yeah.
So if I were to talk to some of the folks that you have managed over the years in your sales leadership positions, how would they describe you as a sales leader?
They go, who?
No, that's great.
Who's that? No, I think that they'd say that I'm a kind person, and that's how I like to lead. And they like this open, flat type of leadership style that allows for collaboration. They know exactly where I stand at all times, and I think they would think that I had their back and that I was interested in their success and growth.
Sure. When you think back to the different teams you've managed over the years, the ones who were at the high point of their game, always successful, what were a couple things they were doing different than some of the teams that maybe weren't at that same level that you've managed before?
I think that the people that were successful were the ones that really focused on the goal and were able to cut through the fodder and just focus on what was helping them contribute the most.
Sure.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I think when you look at teams that are thriving and succeeding, they're obviously doing something different than those who aren't.
Yeah. Well, I was in the Navy, so I was a search and rescue diver in the Navy, and I had a team of 70 folks. And in the Navy, it's a whole different ballgame because you have guys that you know what you're doing. It's cut and dry.
Yeah.
There's no wiggle room. And there's a certain beauty to that, where you can start your day and just read off a list of this is what you're doing, this is what is expected of you. And then at 5 o'clock, you're done. And so I like to try to incorporate that sort of cut and dry, no wiggle room essence at the beginning, and then allow for open communication throughout the process and not be as military-esque down the road.
Yeah. And so you're currently in a position you're kind of trying to grow your team, right?
Yeah.
You're developing a team from the ground up. You've done this many, many times.
Yep.
Are there anything you would do different this time around from lessons learned in the past?
Yeah, totally. In the past, I've hired people and thought, well, I could fix that. Or I really like them and I think that they've got a great, potential, and that I will, by sheer force, mold them into my way of doing things. And that is just, right now, I just have too much on my plate to be able to do that.
Sure.
And so this time forward, I want to be able to find people that are 10 times better than me. So I want to surround myself with just amazing folks where they can hit the ground running and be able to do what they need to do, and I can help steer them in the right direction.
Sure. So what got you to that aha moment where you said, okay, you know what, I've got to do something different this time?
Well, in the nature of our business right now, it's just we don't have the luxury of having a time to have this long ramp in.
Sure.
So I think we'll evolve as a team over time, but right now it's kind of like we need to hit the ground running.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So let's say I'm a brand new sales manager, day one. If you were to give me some advice on what I should be doing, if you can give me one bit of advice, what would that be?
A brand new sales manager, I think I would say make sure that your expectations are understood up front. Make sure you're clear cut on your expectations and allow your team to take responsibilities and grow and give them autonomy, certain sense of autonomy.
That's a valid point, because when we do coaching sessions with our clients, no matter if they're big or small, sometimes the expectations aren't clear.
Yeah.
And that, I always say creates chaos.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're managing chaos. So the clearer you can be with your expectations, I think the more success you'll have, or at least on the path to success, which is where you want to go.
Yeah.
Which is good. All right, so we're at the point in our segment where we do our rapid fire. We end each episode on a rapid fire segment, and what we do is I'll give you a word, I'll give you a phrase, and you tell me how you would inspire that person, that situation.
Okay.
That sound good?
Sure.
All right. Underperformer.
I would empower them, give them a certain, give them some task to do that focuses on, that allows their skills to shine, and give them the opportunity to have that responsibility.
Good. Good. Top performer.
Top performer. Make sure that they understand how valuable they are to the company, but at the same time, always always encourage them to do more, but encourage them to do more not like by raising their quota or by slapping them around, but by inspiring them to do more, making them want to do more.
Sure.
There is a sense of plateauing and complacency that comes into play.
No, makes sense. Seasoned rep.
Season rep. Season rep. Learn from them.
Yeah.
Try to create an atmosphere where they feel like it's a collaboration type of thing. Usually seasoned reps get into a situation where they feel like they know everything, and that they're the ones wagging the dog, so to speak.
Sure.
So I try to learn from them and try to encourage the open dialogue to where we're at baseline.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And on the opposite end, finally, newbie.
Newbie. So have them understand to be an expert on one thing.
Sure.
And to be passionate about something and to find something you're passionate about. It's all about, the money will follow. And if you follow the process and you're passionate, you'll be successful.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, I appreciate your time today. I know that I learned some good stuff, and I know that you'll learn a couple nuggets here today that you can take away and put into practice in your day, and I encourage you to do that. So thank you again for watching Inspirational Leaders. Look forward to seeing you in the next episode.